All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are here for another exciting session of EdPlan SC Virtual Office Hours. Today is Thursday, June 26th, and it is Thursday. I know some of you are on leave and vacation, and you might lost track of what day today is, but today is Thursday. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty lengthy agenda I sent out this morning with some information. I do want to add, I know we have a lot of new faces, and so if I don't have you, like if you didn't get my email today because you're new, if you'll drop me an email or make sure somehow I have your contact information so you don't miss out on all my awesome emails that I send out. All right, so we're going to get started today with some training information. And so the first thing, I've been sharing this out, and we have power user training, initial power user training coming up July 23rd. It's going to be at Volk Rehab here in Columbia, West Columbia. There's a registration link. It is getting pretty full, and so if you go on and it's full already, send me an email. We might add a couple more spots, and then I'll have a waiting list. And then also, again, if I get the feedback that we need another session, we'll add one, maybe early fall. I just need to know what that feedback is, if you want to do that or not. And I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Everything's good. All my PCG people, if you'll make sure the chat is good. And
Yeah, I think I can hear you great, Katie, and I think AI bots are being added to the chat, so I think it's working.
okay, and we are recording, so we're good. All right, so that is for that training, and then what we also have is Sherry and I and Latoya, when she can join us, will be heading out and going into some districts and doing some end user training. So if you are around those districts, some of you, I'm just pushing out the ones for Florence. If you're around those districts, you've already received an email that, hey, we're offering this training, near you. And if you'd like to send users, I know sometimes it's hard. You get one or two new hires, and who has a whole day to spend just talking about EdPlan? Well, I do. I do that every day. And so we're going to offer some end user in-person trainings right now in these three districts on those 3 dates. There's registration links, and I'll also send this out in another email, a follow-up email to you all. So those are the 3 areas that we're hitting right now. We're willing to add some more trainings. You just have to talk to me, and we'll see what we can get on the calendar. I know that July is pretty much booked already, but we're willing to come out and do some more additional trainings if needed. Excited to announce and say the date. We're going to be offering some EdPlan webinars. So the first set of webinars that we have here is end user webinars. Pretty much the same thing that we did. When did we do those? January, February, March, I think we offered those. So they're going to be offered one time. They're going to be recorded and then available. So this is great for new hires, people that need a refresher. We'll cover the basics and then IEP development. It will cover the transition age. It'll cover everything, but it will be like a transition age student that we cover. So it'll cover the gamut of all ages for that IEP development session. It will be broken up. And then it'll cover kind of reporting, what reports that the teachers can run, and looking at progress reporting and those things. And then we're going to have administration, like a school admin webinar. And so we had some feedback about, are they going to get trained, and how will they know what tools that they have? And so that session will be offered August 20th. And so PCG will take us through an admin user's dashboard and looking at that piece. And so then we'll also have an evaluator webinar. We're going to talk later our changes that are coming out July, August timeframe. Those development changes are very focused on the evaluation process based on stakeholder feedback and feedback that I get in FormStack. And so with those changes being done, we want to make sure that we have a new and fresh webinar. So that'll be on September 16th. Again, recorded, so I know not everyone's going to be able to make all these dates and times, but they will be recorded and pushed out. And then the last one is another AR webinar for advanced reporting, and that'll be on August 5th. So again, I know we tried to look at calendars, and I know some people start school that day, but we wanted to get it early enough that people had it for the beginning of the school year. But again, it's going to be recorded. So you'll have that information. Single sign-on is the next topic on our agenda. And so single sign-on, I've been talking about that. I've talked about it to you guys several times. I've talked about it in the LEA call. You know, we initially thought that this was going to be something that was available, and now it's more of a mandated everyone's using this. So if you, for those districts that are, well, everybody's using EdPlan that's on this call probably, but so state procured apps that are purchased through the state, they're going to be coming through on StateLink. So you'll be using StateLink, so single sign-on. It's ClassLink, but it's called StateLink for us. You'll be accessing it then through that. That's going to happen July 11th. It'll be pushed out, but that doesn't mean July 11th you have to start using it. So we were able to work that out where we can kind of slow roll it a little bit. The ask is that we have the districts on accessing EdPlan by the first day of school through StateLink, and so more information to come. We're meeting with it pretty consistently, meeting about it consistently right now to look at how we're going to do this. But if you know that your first day of school is July 28th, and by July 28th, you'll know that you'll be on StateLink. Okay. Any questions about StateLink or that so far? All right, so our next topic is about electronic signatures, and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to send that over to Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So just wanted to share about a known issue, and that is related to signatures that we're looking into. And I guess I'll say that we appreciate if you run into an issue related to signatures, if you can put a ticket in, that really helps us to kind of find the defect and recreate it. Because I think what our team sometimes has a hard time doing is we hear from people, oh, signatures aren't working, it's cutting them off, it's they're not showing up, and then we don't have examples that we can go and find. So if you're having that issue, we just ask if you could take the time. That really helps us to be able to go in and find it, because we try and recreate it and then we can't. But what is happening, I don't know all the pages, but I know I've seen it personally on the eligibility document, where if I come in and add a signature and save it, and then if I come down and create a draft, it will show up on my draft document just fine. And then when I come back to create it, so there's my signature, shows up just fine. But then if I come back, what's still there is my signature is still showing there. But if I now add a new signature and now create a new draft, it's just going to show the new signature that I added. And so it's going to show both. It's going to show both. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it cuts them off in half. So I think our team is really looking into this. We've gotten reports that it's cutting signatures in half, or they're coming and going and not showing up. So we know about this issue. We've seen it in some places. We've seen it on some documents. So I guess my ask is, if you're running into this or you're seeing inconsistencies with the signatures, if you could submit a ticket and let us know what you're seeing and how it's behaving, that would really help us kind of narrow in on this, to be able to make sure it works.
Okay, good news. Okay.
All right, Katie, I think that was really the main issue we're seeing in EdPlan right now is related to those electronic signatures. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Nope, that's the main piece there. And Wendy had dropped in the chat about StateLink and how it's happening, and so there is going to be a lot more information for those 22 districts that already have it. They can tell you that it was a very much like Katie and Nick were like in this email thread with your IT people and SPED people, and we were going through that process, and does it work? Does everybody know it's coming? And so trying to make sure it was a very smooth process, because we don't want to happen is teachers try to log in and then they can't get in because it's already on State Link. And so we want to make sure everyone knows. We'll work with you on how to set up like an announcement. So that's what we did with the other districts. We had posted an announcement to say like, on April 15th, you're no longer going to be able to log in this way. So like prepare, like you're going to have to log in this way. And so getting everyone ready, ensuring that they have that access. So more to come, I would say right after the holiday on how that's going to look for everyone. And then if you're already using it, and Phil and Nick, from our conversations, it doesn't sound like it's going to be like much work. It's like a switch. And so like your icon might look a little different, or like you'll do instead of class link, it'll say State Link, but it'll be that same process. So for those of you that are already on it, like you saved yourself some heartache with having to do this transfer, during the summer if you were already on. So the next item that we have is consent for initial provision of services.
Let me just, before you go
Oh,
on, Katie,
yep.
There were a couple questions. Karen asked the question, will we have the ability to type in names for signatures instead of signing? That's not something that's on the roadmap right now for being able to type in names into the signatures. And then Lori asked a question, are signatures still only maintained on the finalized document? As in if signature are put in a draft, do they disappear on the final? There's potential for that. If you're seeing that, if you could send us an example, that would be great. But the draft will go away. Like I showed, I was doing a draft. That'll go away. Our guidance is that don't go and add your signatures yet until you're ready to click create final. So if people are drafting, then you shouldn't be adding signatures at that point yet. Only add signatures when it's time to go in and do the final. But if you have situations where you've signed and then you're hitting create final and the signatures aren't showing up, we would definitely want to know about that. We have not found that to be the case in our testing. So if that's happening, let us know. Okay, Katie, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, that's okay. No, I didn't see those questions, so thank you. I got lots of screens open. So the next thing is initial provision of consent for initial provision of services. So we're getting a lot of feedback about, I have these IEPs that are finalized, but I don't yet have consent. So with that, really what needs to happen, and I talked to Peter and we kind of discussed this a little bit, it's kind of like that training piece of, this is how we did it in Enrich, but now in EdPlan, it is more about like, if I don't have consent yet, I'm not implementing that IEP. And so if you finalize that IEP, the system thinks you're implementing it. And so we need to hold off on finalizing IEPs until we have that consent for initial provision of services. And so once you have that consent, you'll go in, update the consent, you can finalize that IEP, and then carry on. And so one of the things that Nick is working on is a report that will show who has a finalized IEP without consent. And then that way you'll know where that issue is. And that's
can
going
I
to be
add to
ready
this,
in the
Katie?
next 2
Because I
weeks.
think
Yeah.
because I think what the concern that we've heard is that EdPlan will allow you to come in and create an IEP and finalize it, an initial. For example, this is an initial. I can come in and create my IEP, finalize, and that's going to create the event, and the compliance symbols are going to go green, that green check mark, because that child now has a finalized IEP. The concern is that if the team has not come in and obtained consent for initial provision of services and documented that, that's going to now throw off the issue, because from the system perspective, the process is done. So we're looking at, how can we help with that? But I think just to give everyone context, that's what we're talking about, is that there's not a compliance check at the end of the IEP process that says, do you have consent for initial provision of services? So there's not a connection between those two processes.
Right. And so they're showing up on reports as an active student receiving services, but they're not actually an active student. They're still kind of in that holding, holding tank. They should be in that holding of, we're waiting for consent to implement this IEP. So once that report is done, we'll push that out that it's available in AR. And we're having internal conversations with PCG and OSIS about how that piece works. So we are looking into it. from a system standpoint, since they are allowed to finalize without that consent. All right, if there's no questions on that, we're going to move over to a quick update on federal reporting from Nick. I know that we just wanted to make sure we hit 2 audiences with this update because I know Carolyn had a data manager meeting, but I know not everyone on this call is on that morning call. So just a quick update from Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So right now there are 2 reports that are available in the state shared folder within AR for federal reporting, Indicator 7 and Indicator 12. Thanks to folks who are submitting feedback. Our attention has been very much on Indicator 7 this week in support with the impending submission deadline. So if you've seen a bit slower responses on your Indicator 12 tickets or Indicator 11 and Table 4 tickets, that will tick back up in response time now as we're getting through the heavy period of support for Indicator 7. We are near the publishing of the Indicator 11 and Table 4 advanced reports. So there are those standard reports that you'll see inside of EdPlan every day, the Table 4 and Indicator 11. Both of those have difficulties in capturing the full data accurately due to the system transition from Enrich. So there are AR reports that are being built and will be released shortly to accommodate those issues. So just like you're using advanced reporting for Indicator 7 and 12 currently, the same thing will be happening with Indicator 11 and Table 4. A quick note is that exit data has not yet been processed by EdPlan SC, and this specifically relates to Table 4. So if you still see 12th graders that are active in your system, we have not yet received the graduation data from EdFi. So once we do receive that graduation data from EdFi, those students will be exited with their graduation reason. So if they were noted as graduated, we'll receive that. If they're noted as graduated with the South Carolina High School Employability Credential, EdPlan will receive that. That information just has not been passed from EdFi to EdPlan SC yet. I'll pause and see, Phil, Katie, if you have anything to add, or if we have any questions in the chat from the Q&A.
I'm muted, but I'm not seeing any questions there, Nick. So if you want, we can move on to updating for next school year. Oh, wait, hold on. When will the exit information be sent from EdFi?
We are going to actually get to that in the PowerSchool rollover section. So feather in the cap on that question, Karen. We'll bring that one right back.
And then Nikki has a question about employability credential. So I don't know if she wants to unmute or type it in the chat for us.
Oh, okay, I'll unmute. So State Department said this morning that we have to go in and modify the exit reasons for the graduates. And every exit reason was in the drop down except for South Carolina employability credential. So I did enter a Zendesk ticket, but are you saying that EdFi will actually have that information and close them out as having received an employability credential?
Yeah, a great question. I think we'll answer it on 2 fronts. One front is EdFi does have the potential to send that information. So there's a reason, the code is W41, and that reason is South Carolina High School Employability Credential. So if you receive that through your feed, that student won't require any additional action because EdFi told EdPlan the correct reason. And then the team is looking into possibilities of expanding that modified exit reason dropdown so that you're able to indicate the South Carolina High School Employability Credential separate from just receiving the certificate, which I think is the option you might see now, Nikki. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then now we're going to move on to setting up for next school year. And I know nobody wants to talk about that yet, but we need to. Setting up for next school year. And so calendar dates, reporting periods, what are we doing with these new employees? Those kinds of pieces, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the 2 big takeaways that are different from the previous year in terms of what data will be imported into your system relate to the school year dates and to the reporting period dates. So when we set up the system last year prior to launch, EdFi told EdPlan when your school year started and stopped, and then within that school year, what your reporting periods were to generate progress reports. Throughout the year, we identified that this was not optimal as the information that came from EdFi was often inaccurate or not representative of the special education practices in your district. So this year, we will not be importing these. That means the school year dates will not automatically be set at your school district, and the reporting periods will not automatically be set by the feed. This means that you need to take manual action to set those up. But in our experience in the past year, about 85% of folks probably went in and corrected what was imported. So the key takeaway is that the calendar dates and the reporting period dates will not flow through EdFi this year. But what will continue to go through EdFi this year are the day types. So the in and out days. If you have a inclement weather day on September 15th, that will come through EdFi. But EdFi will not tell EdPlan Q1 starts and stops here. That will be a manual action. And hover there and see if my team has anything to add or if there are any questions about that.
For good measure, do we want to show that?
I think that's what Shannon's here for. So here she
Yes,
comes.
that's what I'm here for. Yep, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so to set up our calendars and reporting periods, we're going to the same place. We're going to go up here to calendar on our blue navigation bar. From here, we'll scroll to the bottom and select Edit School Years. This will give us a list of all of the school years. We can see that 24, 25, 25, 26, these are probably already showing up here, or they are already showing up here. What you'll want to change from here is these dates. So if you want to adjust these to match your school calendar, you would just take that out, put in the correct date, and update. The second piece to this is setting up those reporting periods. So if we look up here, we've got a reporting period or report periods column. We're just going to follow along that same row and select Edit. And we can add as many reporting periods as we need with this Add Another Reporting Period button. It's going to autofill a reporting period name, but you can change this to whatever makes sense for your district. One thing to note is we are suggesting not putting in a begin date. As you guys have been going through the school year, you may have noticed sometimes when generating a progress report, you may get an error message saying that you can't create a progress report for a marking period in the future. This will prevent that. We don't need these begin dates, so you can leave this field blank. You will want to select an end date, so you can either use the calendar function here or you can type it in, but that is going to print on those progress reports. So that's why that end date is important. Due date is what will set your reminders. So any alerts that you're getting around progress reports, those are going to be based on this due date. If you have too many reporting periods here, you can always delete. And you can make edits to these. Any questions about setting up the school calendar dates or those reporting periods?
I think the question was about the due date. It's not necessary. So you don't have to put it in there. Yeah, but if you, what happens if it is in there, Shannon?
If it is in there, that's when you would get alerts. So if you don't want alerts coming in, letting you know that you have progress reports coming due or they are overdue, you can leave that blank. If you do want those alerts coming through, that's when you would set that due date.
Yeah, and then just say one more time about the begin date, why we're not doing that.
Yes, so begin dates, we're leaving blank. If you have ever gotten an error message when creating a progress report telling you that marking period can't be in the future, it's because of this begin date. So this sets a parameter as to when you can run this progress report. So that's all that is there. We can leave that begin date off. It doesn't actually affect anything regarding that progress report, but it could cause some error messages.
And then can they start setting that up now? Like
Yes.
I'm eager. I want to get started. There you
Yes,
go.
absolutely. And some districts already have, so feel free to go ahead and set these up.
Yeah, they're not going to be imported. Last year we imported them at the school level. And so you also, like perhaps for our charter districts or things like that, where they may have different reporting periods based on individual schools, it can also be set at the school level. I think if folks will remember last year when we had our first progress reporting period, there were some challenges related to the calendar the district calendar and the school calendar not matching. So our recommendation would be, unless you have a reason, just set the reporting periods at the district level, and that's that big calendar icon at the top that only power users can do. Only in the case if you have a specific reason to, do you need to go into the actual school level calendar and set reporting periods at the school level. So Shanna's kind of showing that. You could click and find the school, click on that calendar, so you could control it by school. But our understanding is that in the majority of districts, everyone follows the same kind of reporting period calendar. The only case I think is typically in like our charter districts.
And something to be aware of, and a reason not to set it up at your schools if you don't need to, is if you are trying to do a progress report through a wizard versus doing it on the students documents tab, that could cause some issues, because the wizard will be looking at the district calendar, whereas the student level would be looking at the school calendar. So if those are different, you can have some inconsistencies in your progress reports.
Yeah, Nikki, I think, pointed that out. That if you want to use the wizards, you got to use the wizard's always going to default to the district calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we had a couple other questions. Where do those alerts come from, Lori? So the alerts for, like, I'm guessing that when they're coming due, what's triggering that?
That due date. So that due date is what's going to specify that, and it's going to be based off of that. So if you want those alerts to come through, fill out the due date column. If you do not want those alerts, that's when you would leave that blank.
And I think they come to the My Messages place. Like that's where they get the alert, is in the
right
My Messages. They get a message in their My Messages widget on the main page.
All right, and then will entering a due date prevent users from completing a progress report after the due date?
No.
It's just, I think
it's just there
for
alerts.
Yeah, it's just there for compliance. And then it helps you with running that report to see, also running that progress report, not done or not completed progress report, then I think that would put that on them on that list, right? For that standard report.
This doesn't actually affect that standard report.
Oh, okay. It's just
so
showing that
this
it's not,
is really just there for alerts.
Okay. All right. So then, Karen asked if I set up interim and quarterly reporting periods. Interim will not show up if I choose every 9 weeks for reporting, right?
Wrong. Yeah, basically no. If a reporting period, the way that the progress report functions right now is any reporting period that is added to this list will show up on the progress report, no matter what's chosen in the IEP. I think something that's coming is that kind of a change to the formatting on the progress report, where only the periods where comments have been entered will print on the progress report. So that would solve that problem. Whoever asked that, in that if your teachers only do reports every 9 weeks, like if there's a difference between high school and elementary school, for example, only the reporting periods where the teachers have made comments are going to print on the document. But right now, whatever reporting periods you set up, those are going to print on the progress report for every student.
All right, so lots of questions, some questions about the alerts. Who gets the alerts? Case managers or entire IEP team? And can users choose to not have the alert sent to them, or if I enter a due date, will users get a notification?
So individual users can't opt out. Phil, do you know off the top of your head which user types receive that? If not, we can follow back up.
Yeah, I think it's it's based on user type, and I think it is the case manager, team lead user type. Yeah, but we can look into that to confirm.
Okay, and I'm going to take these questions that are in the chat and kind of make like another follow-up. So when I send that, so we'll have that answer in there. And then Stacy said the end date is the end date of the reporting period, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and that prints on the print. Yeah, that prints on the progress report.
And then Lori said, "Can you show again where you went to the add the reporting periods?" And then she said she got it, but I think it would. I think it's a good idea.
We can start
To
from
show it
scratch
one more
again.
time.
Yep.
Yep.
So we're going to go up to calendar on your blue navigation bar. Scroll to the bottom to edit school years. And we'll go down to the school year that we need to edit this for. Can update from here.
And Shannon, I know we're not, but you're in the system. Can you just take us to, because I talked about, I want to make sure everyone knows that they can run this report in standard reports for the progress reports. So if we could just show everyone where that's at. I know I didn't really, I don't know where this is triggering from then. I made that up that in my head that it was triggering from that date. But
I think it's based on the end date
calendar.
of the, actually, I think it may be based on if a student has the document created for the progress report.
Okay. So there is a report, and I think this is a good one to look at to know what students might be missing a progress report at house if you're like a compliance coordinator. And it's right here under special education and then students with no progress report.
And it is recommended to run this every quarter. That way you're staying on top of those students. And if you run it at the end of the year, you may have a longer list of students that you've got to go back and track down. But also it is looking specifically at students with an IEP that are missing a progress report during that progress report period. So if they didn't have an IEP until Q3, it's going to flag them for missing Q1 and Q2. Same thing if they transferred in. You may not have a progress report that you generated for previous progress reports, and they're going to get flagged. So recommendation is to do this every quarter.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. And then we had another question about when you create a progress report through the wizard for ESY, does it indicate on the progress report which goals were ESY goals?
My initial reaction is it does not. I want to go
so.
verify that, but I do not think it specifies which goals were ESY goals. It just shows all the goals. And then you could go in and make comments for the ones that were the ESY, like the ones that were worked on for ESY, and not make comments on the ones that weren't. But we may need to, I want to verify that.
Yep. So Phil, verify that, and we'll once I have all the questions, I'll send something out with those answers from the chat so everyone can see those. So anyone that is out and about this summer and enjoying their summer and not on our call and is listening to the recording, they'll have those answers from the chat. All right, and so then moving on to inactivated user accounts, I think Nick just has a quick follow up from those initial emails that went out about those inactive user accounts and the pause in the user feed.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So I'll start with the inactivated user accounts, which impacted some districts, but not all. So if I'm saying that and you're not aware of what's happening, it's good. That means this did not impact you. But there was a condition in the EdFi feed that if a user had one school association that was still active, but had another one that was inactive, EdPlan was given the information that the user was inactive and their account was moved to the inactive section, just like you'd do with a student. Katie has communicated with folks where that was impacted, and to turn the user back on, you just go into the inactive users menu and reactivate them. But that ties over to the PowerSchool feed, because if a user is currently inactive in your system and they reappear when the PowerSchool feed initiates again in the coming days and weeks, they will reactivate themselves. So if you're wondering if you have any inactive users, you can go to the admin tab, search for inactive users, and find folks inside of that section. But if they're still employed at your district, when the feed turns back on and they were inadvertently turned off, they will repopulate in your system. And then, Katie, do I go right into the PowerSchool feed? I've lost my agenda.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
We're going right into, oh no, I'm sorry, we don't. We go right into requesting to add students for Zendesk.
Yeah.
And talking about that SUNS ID.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So right now we're in the period where PowerSchool data is not moving to EdFi and then to EdPlan as the end of year processes occur, which means that if a new student is enrolled in your district, they will not automatically show up inside of EdPlan. Similarly, if a new user begins working at your district, they will not automatically have an account created for them in EdPlan. The difference between students and users are that the people on this call can add their own users. So if you need to add a user account for someone who's hired last week and the feed is off, you can go into the users menu and create that account yourself. That is not something you can do with a student. So if you have a student who needs to be added during this period of time where the data feeds are not active, you can submit a Zendesk ticket to our team, and our tier 1 team will be able to handle this, meaning the person you're chatting with can do this directly. They don't have to escalate it to another team member. While you're chatting with them, they can complete this process. They're going to require evidence that the student has a SUNS ID and evidence of an enrollment date. And usually this is done with a single screenshot out of PowerSchool that contains both the SUNS ID and the enrollment date. And if our staff is given that information, they will add the student right there. And then once the feeds turn back on, the feed will match up with the student that was created based on the SUNS ID, and there will be no duplication. But that is the reason we enforce the SUNS ID condition, is to avoid duplication. So the student must have a SUNS ID assigned to them in order to be entered into EdPlan.
Okay, and we have questions about going back to contracted users. Do we need to re-add contract users, or will they still remain in their in the user database?
Yeah, great question, Karen. I'll use a metaphor. I love metaphors. I think anytime you add a contracted user manually, it's kind of like floating out in a lake without a rope tied to an inner tube. That user is created and they'll remain there until you or someone on your staff turns them off. So if they're not included in the user feed, they'll remain active until you take action. So the other side of that coin is if you have a contracted user that has left your LEA, the EdFi feed does not automatically inactivate them. So a good practice would be, as you have contract staff who may no longer need access to your system, inactivating those user accounts manually is a key step, but you do not need to re-add them from year to year. They will remain in the user database.
And that's a very important step. So I'm glad you said that, Nick, is making sure that if they're not supposed to have access anymore, that they don't. You also can turn them on and turn them off, meaning that you can go in, change their user type from, school psychologist and change it to non-provisioned. And then when they come back in a couple of months, make them provisioned if for some reason they're off contract. And, that's up to you how you want to do that. I used to keep my list very, very tight. I knew who had access and who didn't. And if you were leaving, if you're leaving at 4 o'clock on a Friday, at 4 o'clock, on Friday, you no longer had access. So looking at that piece. And then the other question was, so the feed won't override added users when it's active again. And I think that's when that user code is going to come into play and how you're creating that user.
Yeah, exactly right. So when EdPlan receives user information from EdFi, we receive a user code, and that's like the unique identifier for a staff member, just like the SUNS ID is the unique identifier for a student. So if you manually add a user using the same user code that comes to the EdFi feed, that will match up and the user account will not be duplicated. If those are different, then that will cause the user feed to not create the new account because it matches on the email address. So Phil's email is pyoung@pcgus.com. If you didn't have it, now you can email him. And if someone had added Phil Young under a different user code and then EdFi turned on and tried to make a new account for Phil Young, that account would be blocked until you resolve the duplication. It can be resolved. So if you run into this, submitting a Zendesk ticket, our staff can help you fix this situation. But to avoid it even happening in the first place, manually adding the user under the same user code that comes to us through EdFi will ensure that only one person gets created, not two.
And you can talk to your PowerSchool team. They'll be able to get that information about that user code for you more than likely. And then also so when you put in that user code, EdPlan is going to generate a user ID, username, like a random one. And so if you want it to be that person's email, you can submit a Zendesk ticket and ask them to change that over so their user ID is their email address and not the randomly generated user ID. I'm making sense there, but All right, Nick, anything else on that? Let me see. I'm seeing
seeing,
tickets.
yeah, Joan's question and then Amanda's response. And I think we have Laura on the call. So I'll just preface with Joan, what I'm going to put in the chat is a recommendation to reach out to Laura Coverin from SCDE, who can assist with if your students aren't getting the SUNS ID. So if you submit a ticket to us through Zendesk saying, I can't even get the SUNS ID to generate, we will pass that to Laura. But if you just reach out directly to Laura on the front end, I think that might expedite the process. Because if they don't have a SUNS ID, our only response in Zendesk will be they need to receive a SUNS ID, which will not be helpful for you. But Laura, I know, is on the call and can assist with that. So if you have any questions, please reach out to Laura Coverin.
Okay, and I think that's it for that piece. And now we're going to go into that PowerSchool pause. And talking about when that's going to happen. Well, it's happening right now, but how long and what does it mean?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Katie. I keep unmuting and I realize I just have this big chunk in the middle. I should stay on mute. But so with the PowerSchool pause at the end of every year, this is a process that we'll experience next summer and the next summer after that. It is a period of time where PowerSchool processes are being done to end the 24-25 school year and to begin the 25-26 school year. And importantly, it's not just PowerSchool, it is the publishing of PowerSchool information to EdFi. So EdPlan is not directly connected to PowerSchool, it's connected to PowerSchool through EdFi. So you might hear our staff sometimes say your PowerSchool feed. We are working on being more consistent in saying the EdFi feed, because what is true in your PowerSchool can be different from what you see in EdPlan because it's routed through EdFi. So we stopped receiving the information from EdFi for this end of year process on 6/20. So we're coming up on a week. I think that means it was last Friday. So since that point, data in your system has not been changing through the automated feed. The earliest projected date that the feed will begin again is on 7/7/2025, so a week from this upcoming Monday. But an important point is that this date or when you will see a change in your EdPlan system is specific to your district. So I have another metaphor for this one related to a bus, but the bus, so to speak, that picks up all the data and brings it to EdPlan will start running again on Monday, 7/7, barring any further communication that might change that. But we're quite confident it will start again on Monday the 7th. That does not mean that your district's data will be on that bus. For your district data to get on that bus to reach EdPlan, you need to complete the publishing steps to EdFi to initiate the 25-26 school year. So once your district resumes publishing, data on EdPlan will look like normal once your district gets on the bus, so to speak. So once we get tickets, which I expect there will be a number of them, and we'll have clear focus on these tickets in early July, if you submit to our Zendesk team saying, we don't see updated data in our system on Tuesday, July 8th, our team's first check is going to be looking at the files we receive, and we'll check to see if your district is even included in those files. And if your district is not included in those files, our response on the ticket will be, you need to work with your PowerSchool staff to conduct initial EdFi publishing. And I see that Laura has put her email address in the chat, which I greatly appreciate. We will be directing you to Laura for assistance in doing that initial publishing. So to summarize, the feeds will begin to run again on the night of Monday, July 7th is the current projected date, but that does not mean your district's data will automatically begin refreshing on that date. Your district must complete the beginning of your publishing processes to get on the bus. All right, I'm going to pause here. Laura, if you have anything to correct, please hop off mute and let me know if I spoke imprecisely anywhere or if we have any questions.
No, I think that was great. I was just going to say for people who are not sure when their publishing will start, that would be something to check with your PowerSchool people in your district. They're in charge of when you're setting up your 25-26 ODS, and it's usually pretty close to the start of the school year, if not before, but yeah.
I'm seeing Suzanne's question. Laura, I'll probably defer to you here. If a district has already rolled over, if that process is complete and the bus starts running on 7/7, is there anything else they need to do? Or if that rollover has happened today, are they ready for 7/7?
They should be ready. It should show up as expected when it starts running on 7/7.
Suzanne, let us know if that helped answer your question. Okay. Rolled over yesterday. There you go. Awesome. Okay.
Okay. All right. So then after we roll over, Nick, that was kind of the next step, is after we roll over, you know, what kind of things can we do to do cleanup? And so we talked about, you know, running a report with the student search, showing them how to do, if there's no case manager, running that active student list, making sure that everyone's where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a little ill prepared, so I hope Shannon has the training site up, or someone who can share their screen. I'm not logged in right now, but if you can share it,
do.
Shannon, I can talk us through. Thank you. All right, so we'll go through a few steps that you can take once your system rolls over for the first time in EdPlan SC at the beginning of the next year. So if your district is rolled over, this would be, in theory, the morning of Tuesday, July 8th. The data would have run the first time, you would have been included. So I'm going to show you a series of steps you can take to understand the state of your system the first day after that rollover. First one of these will be the No Case Manager Standard Report. So if Shannon will go to reporting, click on reports, and then EdPlan SC every day. I believe this one is underneath special education. It might be underneath general admin. Let's see. Let me check general admin, Shannon. No, I'm not looking prepared at all. There is a report
Just
that
a
is titled Students with No Case Manager. It might be the user type Shannon was in
Yeah.
under. Yeah.
And you could use, you could find it in advanced student search as well. So if you don't want to come in here and actually run a report, you can just do it from advanced. That's where I like to run it from, or like I like to do it from, but
awesome.
I always say there's like more than one way to get where you want to go in EdPlan. So
yeah, that's right. Okay. I am going to, as soon as I stop talking, go find this report. I'm just not driving you to the right location. But as Katie said, there's also a way to do this within the advanced search. So what I was showing you would give you an Excel document. You can get the same results inside of the advanced student search. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the advanced student search, you should be able to sort by the student's case manager. So if you click that case manager radio button and then hit view students, I think Shannon's going to get too many because we're on the training site. But when you do this, it will give you a listed results of your students, and then you'll be able to sort by case manager. And if that case manager column is blank, that's a signal to you that the student is likely should be receiving services but does not have a case manager. So right now, Shannon's looking at every student, gen ed or otherwise. But if you filter to students who are special education served and do not have a case manager, that's a signal to you that they need someone assigned. And a reason for that is school changes that might happen for a student. So if a student right now has a case manager who is only assigned to the elementary school and they're in 5th grade, and they're going to switch schools to 6th grade and change to a middle school next year, their old case manager, if they only had access to the elementary school, will no longer have an association to that student because now they're at the middle school. So when students are making those transitions, if their case manager does not have all schools access or does not have access to the new school the student is enrolled at, that relationship will no longer be present because that case manager does not have access to that middle school. I think this will be especially important for your students who are going up, 5th grade to 6th grade, 8th grade to 9th grade. Phil, do you have any context to add on that?
Yeah, actually, Shannon, if you'll go back to the student search, there is just kind of a filter right at the top in the advanced student search that is only students with no case manager currently assigned. So if you clicked that, that's going to kind of filter your entire report. So now you could go in and choose, all right, I want to see all the 6th graders at whatever school, and then that'll give you a report of everyone that doesn't have a case manager. And like Nick said, that's likely going to be, you know, the kids that move that are no longer associated with their teacher. Now, if you're a speech therapist, for example, and you've set up your caseload and you're associated with, you know, all the schools in the district, those kids are going to stay on your caseload because you're still associated with that child because you have access to all the schools. So what we're talking about is really more specific to if I'm a special ed teacher or a speech therapist or somebody, and I only have access to one school, if that child is no longer in that school, they will no longer be on my caseload. Or they'll no longer have a case manager because I'm not associated with them anymore. So, there's the caseload setup wizard, there's the caseload administration wizard. There's lots of ways to get those students assigned to a case manager, but this would be one thing to go in and understand, who are those kids that don't have a case manager.
And it's super important, when I ran it for my district, I looked at it, I ran this one weekly. Because one time I wasn't running it and we had a student and they came and they had no case manager and no one knew they were there and they were sitting in gen ed for like 3 weeks with no services, nothing was going on, nothing was happening. And so when they came over, I can see that they have no case manager. I also had 2 teachers that were arguing over who should be responsible for the student. And so they kept taking the student off their caseload. And so every time I ran the report, it was off the caseload. I'd put it back on, I'd take it off. So, you just want to make sure that to be really neat and clean at the beginning of the year, when you're running that report, you're looking, why doesn't the student have a caseload? Did they come over from Enrich and they've been sitting here for a while and maybe they were supposed to be dismissed and they weren't? I think my favorite thing to run for myself is really Shannon, if you can go down, let's see, keep going, and it's going to be where the compliance symbols are. And so I'll check all those red boxes, or I'll do IEP, ISP, and then that'll pull up. And when it does pull up, it shows that they have no case manager. And so sometimes that's a red flag that they're in the red, they have no case manager, what's been going on with them for a while. So you kind of have to use like your detective skills and investigate these issues. So for those of you that are already doing that, that's great. If you're not, use this advanced search when you're looking for students. It gives you a great snapshot of what's going on in your districts and looking at, where some issues might be. All right, so that was the no case manager. We talked about active student list.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shannon goes to reports, ed plan every day. And then underneath general admin, there's the active student list report. So this will just pull a list of all active students in your system. So if you ran this right now, your 12th graders would still be active, even if they had walked the stage 2 weeks ago, because they are still an active student until we receive that exit. You have the ability to do some sorting and filtering here by grade, by disability, by eligibility status. And then there is the ability in this report to include active students or inactive students. It's kind of hidden beneath the word eligible. Can you circle on that, Shannon? So even though this is called the active student listing, you can make this into an entire student listing by checking this box. This would give you all students active and inactive. Underneath group by, if Shannon, you can drop down that checklist that says school. You can group by school, group by case manager, group by disability, or group by grade. And then to the right of that, it gives you some options for group sorting and order. So if you want to make a page break between groups, so if you want to do a new page for every case manager, you would choose group by case manager and check page break between groups. This would then give you all of your active students broken page by page based on their case manager. And if Shannon changed that to disability, it would do the same thing, but it would split the pages based on disability rather than based on case manager. And finally, at the bottom, the sort by controls the sorting within those groups. So right now, Shannon's report would do pages by disability. And then within those pages, this controls how the results are sorted per page. So if you wanted to get a report of all students by disability sorted by case manager, Shannon would choose case manager here. And then you'd receive a 13-page report for the 13 disability types sorted within those pages by case manager. Hover there and see if my team or Katie has anything to add about this report.
Nope, not seeing anything in the chat.
Right.
And so
I'm gonna one more
yeah.
that I didn't put on the agenda. Sorry,
Okay.
Katie, I just thought of this one.
That's okay.
But ways to look at just inactive students, and I think this will be very important right when your system rolls over and as you start to prepare for table 4. understanding who's inactive in your system. There's a few ways to do sorting on that we hadn't paid a lot of attention to this year. But if Shannon goes through and gets us to the inactive students menu by going to admin actions, and then underneath the admin actions drop down, we should see inactive students. The one thing I want to highlight here is the ability to look at by exit reason. So if Shannon drops down that menu near the very bottom, this will allow you to only receive back information about students who are inactive for a certain reason. And Shannon's on the training site, so this won't be effective because this is not connected to PowerSchool. But these are the PowerSchool reasons that come through for the inactivation of a student. So if you wanted to see students who had graduated, I'll have Shannon click on graduated, kind of in the middle bottom there. And then if you want to know only those students who graduated recently, you could put in the exited after field, June 1st, or whatever is applicable to your district. And then you'd hit view. I think Shannon will get 0, but you would see all students who had graduated after a certain day. That can kind of help you view your inactive students in the system without having to run a report. It's a little bit more interactive. Okay.
All right, so that's going to take me to sharing my screen. We're going to talk about the information that's in the resource information widget. So just as of today, a new tab is there for eligibility worksheets. We'll be moving all the eligibility worksheets under here, trying to make things as easy as possible to find when you're trying to search for something. But I want to take note that this SLD guide has been added on here. Lisa asked me to upload that in as a resource. And so that is there for you. And then the SLD worksheet that is listed here was updated back in March. And so one of the districts reached out that they didn't think I had the right one up there. And I looked with Lisa and sure enough, it was never updated back in March when the new one had come out. So that is there. And then eventually what we'll be doing is we're working on taking the ones that are under special education forms and putting them under the eligibility worksheets. And so what you'll have under the special ed forms is really that contingency plan for right now. The other piece is the system transition materials. I want to make sure that you're all aware that those are being updated and I've been updating them bit by bit in my spare time. And so looking at those, but there is one for revocation now. So, back in Enrich, we had that prior written notice that Peter had given some language for. And so that is there. So if you have a revocation, that PWN, that cut and paste language is there for you to use. You can edit it. You can cut and paste this into EdPlan into your PWN. We're just looking at development right now for, do we want a standalone PWN for revocation that already has this in there? Right now we don't. So this is what I'm doing is this form. So you can use this form and upload it, or you can just open this form, cut and paste what you need to cut and paste into EdPlan into that form. But I wanted you to have that language there. Again, you can just, if you don't want to use this, this resource, you just delete that one, you add a different one. So that information is there for you. So that is for the revocation PWN. So, looking at these, and so I have the dates. I did notice that some of them don't have the year after them, so I have to go back through because we've been doing this for over a year now. So I want to make sure you know that you have the 2025 and not the 2024. And then let's see. We'll be updating some of these other pieces as well. And when things are changed in the system, it gets updated. The quick reference guides will be new. Things will be different in Zendesk. So that's why we said, always come back here and check, especially for these transition materials as the system changes. I'm trying to keep those files as current as possible. So I'm working on that because I know some districts might be using those this summer during the PowerSchool rollover. Right. So we have a couple questions. The first one is, will there be a revocation form added for an ISP either under transition forms or documents and EdPlan? Let me look into that.
Revocation is not really
Yeah,
related to IEP or ISP. It's more about consent for
overall
Services, right? So it's not
I
specific.
think it's the same. I have this answered in an email somewhere with Peter language, so I got to find it. And so then, is there a report and ed plan that gives a list of students with transportation on their IEP?
So I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know if you remember, Nick, but I believe we created an advanced report that gives information about students with transportation.
Yeah, I think the question here is the meaning of transportation on their IEP. The report that we have generated or that is put in the public folder measures using some information from the transportation request form. And I know that that might not always be used in all districts. And another way to measure this, and the report that's shared in the public folder does not measure this way now, is the presence of transportation as a related service. It's kind of a second way to measure it. One way is, did you say yes in special considerations, and did you fill out the request form? A second way would just be, is the related service on the IEP? The first report currently exists in the shared folder. The second one does not. Is that helpful, Phil? You're on mute, Phil.
Thank you. You could run the services report and just filter it for transportation and get all those kids that way as well.
Yeah. Lindy just jumped in the chat and said the same thing. Good point. So yeah, the transportation one named special needs transportation in the shared folder will measure using the request form. But then the services by school report in the shared folder, you could filter that down to transportation, and then you could measure it that way. So thanks for jumping in there, y'all.
And Amanda, yeah, for the revocation of consent, you can use the one that's in ed plan. That's what most districts are doing. I mean, you can develop your own if you wanted to, for whatever reason, but this is just for the PWN. So let me share my screen back. So what I'm sharing is just that prior written notice. And so you could develop your own prior written notice. I just know it was an ask that in Enrich we had this prior written notice for revocation that already had terminology to use. And so it was asked if we could recreate that. And so this is kind of what we're doing for right now. Instead of using development time to develop a revocation PWN in the system, you can use this one. So you can use this PWN and then upload it, or you can open the PWN in EdPlan and just copy and paste the wording that you want to use. Again, you can use this wording, you can use your own wording, you can use a mixture of this wording. And so it's just available there as a resource for districts when they're dealing with revocations. So there's still the form that they're going to sign under my documents, but then this is the PWN. So it's just basically for the wording.
Yeah, and Melissa asked a question in there too about a report for supplementary services like additional education assistance. There's not currently a report for that. We just got an email about this. So we'll look at that. That's a pretty easy report to develop. So we'll talk more, but that just got put on our radar.
Yeah, so we will look at that one. And I want to remind you I have a list, and as we have opportunities to get reports created and shared out, I go to that list. And so that list is getting pretty thin as to ideas of what people want. I did have a district reach out the other day and they're like, we're creating a list. We want to see what your list is. I shared the list that I had. And so they're like, can we add to your list? And I'm like, yes, always. So I just need that feedback. What do you need to make your lives easier through AR? Because I'm looking at the next 10 reports that we're going to have created. Also, if you're at the district and you've created reports, I know we've had some super users out there that have created reports. We've taken those reports and then PCG has ran and tested them, and then we've shared them. So we appreciate that. And so if you need a report, I need to know what you need, because otherwise I'm going to keep pulling from the list that I have. And like I said, I think I only have 3 reports left on that list of the wish list, the report wish list. So email me or use that link to send that request. All right, I think we're good with, I think we're all caught up with questions. And we are going to move to the training site. So Shannon.
That's me. All right, so we will be making changes to the training site. You may see some weird stuff going on Monday. If you happen to be in the system, we'll be working through doing summer updates. You should see all of this live by July 1st, so expect Tuesday. One of the main things we're doing is for each school district, you will have one training school as opposed to 3. This is because that drop-down list is very long and can be a little intimidating. So we're just migrating it all to one. So you'll see your school district name, training school. All of those students will remain. They'll just be under that one training school. We're also going to be updating their birthdays, so their birthdays still make sense. It should function just the way that it has been, aside from it being one training school instead of 3. You will continue to access this through the URL that you're currently using. This will not be part of StateLink, so you'll be able to continue to access this as you have been. We don't plan to make any changes to any of the passwords. So if someone has forgotten their training account password, or you're giving out a training account that maybe you haven't used yet, power users are able to update those passwords from the user info. If you have any issues updating these passwords, you can also reach out to Katie. We can help figure out what's going on.
All right. The next thing on our list was your paperclip. Everyone should have received an email from me regarding your paperclip for next school year. So those allocations, and I think those went out like 2 days ago, maybe. So sometime this week. So if you didn't get it, let me know. Those allocations are out, but I also included, I want that to be your paperclip go-to. So save that in your Katie file. And when you have questions about paperclip, say, oh, I have a whole email with more than I ever wanted to know about paperclip storage. And so I try to put it all right there for you so you would have it. But there's, reports you can run and guides. And so I think this, last year it was really hard to kind of see where we were at with storage, because we were still kind of, we had that unlimited paperclip for the first part of, until September 30th. And then we were still kind of rolling some things in from Enrich over to EdPlan. And so I think this year will tell us more as to how much storage we need, how much storage we're using. And so there's going to be a report also that I receive so that we can make sure that you're not getting the error message of you can't upload anymore. I did hold some back. It doesn't mean, use. It just means that I have it in case we need it, which we saw at the end of the school year. I was having to reallocate some. And so I just want to make sure that before districts are having to purchase anything, for that, they have it. And also in my email, I included, if you have 504 or, health, you might have additional storage that was purchased through PCG as part of an add-on program.
Can I add to that too, Katie?
Yes.
That what will be turned on after July 1 is that when your users go in and upload a document, they will have to choose. Some of you may have already seen this, but it wasn't required. This upcoming year, it's required that when you upload a document, you have to kind of choose the domain that it's associated with. So if you're uploading a document that's related to special education, you'll choose that from the drop-down list, and that will pull from the allocation that Katie or that OSIS has given. Whereas if you're uploading a document that's related to health or 504, you'll choose 504, and that will come from the allocation related to that add-on. So it'll be a little easier for districts to keep track of where's our space being used and who's using it. And you can contact Nikki. You can contact me, and I can let you know what your district has in terms of additional paperclip if you purchase that.
Bill, does that show on that system info, or does it all lump it together?
It'll show on that page, but not yet. It hasn't been configured yet.
Okay. Will it show separately, or will it show as one lump?
I think and Shannon, I don't know if you know, but I think it'll show each domain, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll show separately.
So you'll see how much Katie, like how much the special education allocation was, which that's the one that Katie emailed everyone and told them this is your number, and that's based on child count. 2.5 megabytes per child in your child count based on last year's child count number.
All right, the next one is looking at power users and Zendesk. I talked about this. I've got an email kind of drafted that I'm working through because I want to make sure it makes sense. And it's kind of cumbersome when it comes to looking at who are your power users and who do you want to be your ticket submitters. And so PCG ran a report for me, and I can see everyone in your district that submitted a ticket since July, since launch. And so I'll be sharing that information with you. And so if your original allocation of power users was 3, your ticket submitters is going to be 3. Your power users, you can have as many as you'd like, but we're recommending you keep it tight. Like I have one district I know, it's her, and that's how I was too. Bigger districts might have 2 or 3, but you should really be looking at, you know, what do they need to be able to do? And so that permission is going to be separated. So you're going to have power users and you're going to have ticket submitters. A power user can be a ticket submitter too. It's just like one of those little checkbox permissions. So I'll be sending those emails out. You'll be letting me know who are your power users and then who are your ticket submitters. And then Shannon will be making that change in the system. Also, that is for special ed. So if I'm telling you 3 and you have 4 because one's a school nurse because you have health, the school nurse is not in our count. She has her own ticket submission like access. So I need the 3 special ed users that are going to be submitting tickets, not for any of the add-on programs. What else about that?
Yeah,
Phil?
I think yeah, like for example, for add-on programs, if you're a fee-for-service admin or something like that, that user type can submit tickets, and so you wouldn't need to, like, you're already set up to set tickets, you know, so you don't need to tell that. I think Katie's asking for who that's not already able to submit tickets because you have some type of an add-on or something like that needs to be able to submit tickets. And that, because that is controlled by person, not by user type. Whereas for like the fee-for-service admin or 504 admin or those other things, that's controlled by the user type. But this change is basically before power user, we're the only ones that could submit tickets, and now we can control that by person, not by user type.
So that's part of Karen asked who will get that email. So that was part of what I was running into is who do I need to send this to that's going to have this information, because that EdPlan SC contact list that's in Deems, I don't know some of those people, and I think some of those people are more like district leadership. And so they're getting my emails, but I don't really think that they're a part of like the power user, like what's going on with the tickets and understanding that piece. And so I'm looking at that, and I think it's just going to be that contact list that I have for power users. So it'll be those current power users that are in the system right now. But I'd also like to get, like, I sent out an email this morning and I got like, well, like 50 people were on leave, but I probably got about 20 kickbacks of users that they're not there anymore. And so making sure that you're getting that updated, you're updating that information in Deems for EdPlan contacts, but also for special ed records, but then also emailing me. And I've gotten a lot of emails today about, can you add this person? So if you need someone for me to add to my contact list, I can do that. I just need their information. If you need a power user added, that's going to be me as well. So moving forward, right now we're doing this big push of who's going to be power users, who's going to be doing tickets. Once that's done, you'll still be emailing me directly to say, hey, Katie, can you add this person as a power user? Or I need to change this person as a ticket. Power user, I won't be keeping track of how many you have. You can always run that, you know, in Rich, go to users and run all your power users and see who they are. Or not in Enrich, in EdPlan. And so, but then for your ticket submission, I will be keeping track of that, because if your allocation was 3, then I need to keep you at 3. So I can't add a 4th one. And so I think that email is going to be going to the current power users. and then they can figure that out. But it will give you a list of who is submitting tickets. If for some reason I don't hear from you, because I need to hear from you back after I send these out within a couple of weeks, I'd like to have this done by middle of end of July for Shannon to do. I will just, who has been submitting tickets will be who's submitting tickets, and then I'll tell you this is who's submitting tickets, and if you want that changed, you can just email me. And there will still be districts using Enrich this upcoming school year. There are 4. It is Greenville, Anderson 1, Sparta 6, and Florence 1. And so remember when their records come in, you treat them in the system as a out-of-state transfer to get their information loaded in. And with that special ed records transfer list, I noticed today I was getting ready to send it out, and there was 5 people that I noticed right away that are no longer with that district. So I've been trying to send out emails to get that updated. But if you know that somebody has left, if you can make sure that information's updated in Deems, and usually it's their IT person that does that. Sure, it's Anderson 1, Florence 1, Sparta 6 in Greenville. All right, any questions about the separation of power user from ticket submission? All right, and so then I'm going to kick it over to Ann, and she's going to talk about tips and tricks for annual reviews, and that was a document that I sent out in the email today.
Hi, everyone. So the good news is that you got through this year and your users got through the year. So now the majority of your IEPs have been initially entered into the system. So given that, when it's time to do an annual review, there's a few little things that you might want to share with your users to remember. Katie did send out a document with these things listed, but I just wanted to quick go through and show you. IEP overview, you want to make sure when you start that you go in and select develop that annual IEP and enter in your dates. Now, of course, it's possible that a meeting is going to get rescheduled or something, but you want to put in these dates here so you can use autofill all dates as you go in the system. Because you don't want to remember those dates. You want to be able to say autofill all dates if that's appropriate. So you just want to make sure to select that develop an annual review and then put in your dates. And you can go to the next screen. You want to remember, or you want to remind users that when you select a special consideration, another panel shows up. So maybe last year that student didn't need assistive technology, but this year they do. They need to think about it and remember that there's information that has to be entered if the student needs it. It's an easy thing to kind of forget to do, but that's just a reminder to really check the special considerations. And then we're on to our present levels page. Some teachers may not have had to go in and do an annual review on a student that already had goals entered in the system. The system does require you to inactivate your previous goals. You can choose to do that right now, or you can choose to do that when you're creating your final IEP. But I will point out that if you come down here to your goals, you do not have the option to edit that goal. The only thing you can do with that goal is to delete it. So at annual review, you are starting from scratch, adding your custom goals. The system also won't allow you to be like, oh, that's okay, I'm just going to add that goal again. If it's the same goal, the system will just stop you from doing it. So some of your users might not know that, and that might come as a surprise to them. So that might be something you want to bring up. I also want to talk about assessments. The assessments, everything that you entered will be here. Nothing is being cleared from this workspace unless you manually clear those goals. So this assessment was from my past IEP. And I have here that it's included in the IEP. If I don't want this assessment to be included in the IEP, I have a couple of choices. I can delete it, but that will remove the assessment from the system, like you hadn't added it at all. And you might want to go back and look at past assessments to see where that student was on those assessments in the future. So the next way to remove this from the IEP would be to select Edit. And when you select Edit, you see this little box here. You can deselect, include on IEP, and save. And now that assessment's will no longer pull on your IEP. That's a matter of preference, but I just wanted to warn you that if you deleted it, it's gone. Whereas you can just not include it and you still have that record in the system. Any questions so far? All right. So we're going to our next page. I'm sorry, my computer is not happy with me today. Okay. It's not happy. It's not letting me go because my dates for that goal are incorrect. That's all right. I didn't go in to adjust those dates because I can't use that goal. So let me just go back to the plan.
We have a question. Do the assessments disappear from the table if they are over 365 days old?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
And I think one additional point, they disappear from within the process, but that assessments tab running along the second blue bar, that will be a running history forever. So you won't see things that are dated more than 365 days from that, but any assessment that's ever entered will build up in this tab for the life of the student.
Okay, so we're on our accommodations. You want to make sure people remember that they have to change these accommodation dates at annual review. So the easy way to do that is if you have entered those dates on that first tile, I can autofill all dates. It will make sure that those are the dates I want, and I hit save. And now those accommodation dates have been updated. You can edit this and put in the dates you want for those accommodations. If you don't want the accommodation to last the life of the IEP, you can edit and change it here. But most people want accommodations that last the entire life of the IEP. So then you have that auto fill all dates. Once again, all of this will pull over. They just have to remember to edit it. And the same goes for supplementary aids and services. If a student has a supplementary aid and service, they have to remember to come in and update the dates if they don't plan on removing that supplementary aid or service. This is something I forget to do often. And then I get that error message and I have to go back in and do it, and I'm annoyed with myself. So just a quick reminder for them. I'm trying to. Do I have something new in the chat? No. Okay, I don't. Then I'm going to state and district-wide assessments. You want them to remember to go in and make sure that the correct state and district assessments are chosen. They change grades, and especially when you go from 5th to 6th grade or 8th to 9th grade, assessments change. You want to make sure they've selected the right one and that specificity is still correct in your state and district assessments. And then, of course, with your services, once again, you want to make sure that they update their service dates. You have the option to autofill, or the service might be just for a semester or for a reporting period, whatever you want it to be. But this is also easy to forget to do. So just remind them to do that. The ESY determination. No, I'm sorry, related services. Same thing, go in, make sure that all of those are accurate, remove, update, and then autofill all dates. It does, from past experience, it is very easy to forget to update a section. So they want to have a plan to just go through and make sure all of those are updated, since the information remains in the system. They don't get an error if they don't update a section. The only error they get if their dates aren't right. So, extended school year. If you're doing an extended school year determination at an annual review meeting, you have to remember to review all that information to make sure it's correct. But you also have to remember, and the team is talking about this, that those goals that you're choosing as ESY goals are going to clear out, because you're going to deactivate those goals. So if there is a goal from the previous IEP that you're going to address in ESY, you will need to add it again in that annual goal page, and you will have to make some change to it. Add an extra space, add some punctuation, just add something to it so the system will accept the same goal being added. Did I say that correctly, Nick? He wasn't
Yeah,
expecting me to call him.
it can't be the
Okay.
exact
Exact.
same string. It has to differ by one character. Yeah.
So you can enter that goal again with the difference of a character.
And can you repeat that in its entirety? About repeating the goals?
The ESY goals? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So if you were doing an ESY determination at an annual review meeting, when you decide a student needs ESY, you choose goals that are going to be addressed by ESY. I can't choose this goal because I can't edit this goal. I can't go in and mark this goal as being an ESY goal. So I would have to add the goal in. And it's going to be the same goal. Usually at ESY, you're addressing the goals that are on the current IEP. And if you enter it word for word exactly, the system won't let you, because it won't let you add the same goal. But as Nick said, if you add the goal, but you add an extra character, maybe 2 periods or a comma somewhere, the system will accept that goal in. And then you can choose it as the goal being worked on at ESY. This only happens when you are determining ESY at annual review, because the system is set up to delete the past goals. So that's we do have it on the tip sheet, but that's a workaround for adding that goal until a better solution has been determined. Okay, I see a question asking providers to clear info, update info, clear dates, leaves a lot of room for error. Are we going to have an option to clear info in the future? That's been discussed right now. It's not on the list of things that we're working on, but
well, it is. It's been on the list. We've looked at it for development, but it's a massive amount of development to do it each way. So we're still looking into it. It was something that we thought we were going to move forward with, but there's more implications to clearing out the data than we had initially realized when we first started to explore clearing the data.
On the placement page, you need to they need to remember to choose once again that LRE based on the services that students getting, their educational placement that's appropriate for October child count. And then remember that this LRE is here for a guide to help you. And then there are no dates here that needs to be adjusted. And then when you go to create the IEP, if you haven't already cleared the goals out, it won't let you finalize unless you've cleared the previous goals. This information pulls, of course, from the overview page. You might have intended for the meeting to be on one day and it got postponed, so adjust anything you need to. Remember, if you adjust the dates here, you'll have to adjust the dates that have been entered throughout the IEP. And then you can finalize. The PWN is cleared after you finalize it. So when you go to the PWN, it will be blank. So this does clear. But all of those tiles in the IEP do not. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Anne. And that document was sent out today with your reminder about today's meeting. And I know we are at time, so we will hurry through the last item, which is upcoming configuration and development changes. I sent that information out. So those little changes will take place the night of June 30th. So you'll see those changes July 1st. And Phil, do you want to add anything about the development updates for July, August, and October that we put in there?
No, I mean, I think we wanted to just give you a heads up that these things are coming. Obviously, we're going to send out, as it gets closer, more detailed release notes that will kind of have a detailed explanation of what exactly changed. But we wanted just you to have a heads up of here's what's coming in August, here's what's coming in October, so you kind of know what's on the roadmap in the future.
And we have July, August, because if it's ready in July, we're pushing it in July. So the sooner the better.
Yeah, our goal is to get it out as soon as possible.
Right. But with testing, we're just making sure that it's going to work like that. And then, yeah, just trying to more transparency of what's coming because people have been asking. But we will center office hours around those changes. The eval webinar will focus on those changes that were made with that release as well. And then Wendy has a question about progress reports. So we will hang out, Wendy, so we can answer that question for you. But I'm going to dismiss everyone else that doesn't want to stay for the progress report question. Just remember that our next office hours is July 31st. And if you have anything that you want added to that, send that through the link. I will be out on leave tomorrow and Monday. So if you don't hear from me in the next couple of days, that is why. But I will be back in town next week on Tuesday. I'll be back at it. All right, so looking at that progress report. Question, Wendy, do you want to unmute or do you want to type that out for us?
Okay, so I asked this a while ago and I don't know if it was ever answered, but when you look at the options for the progress report, you know, satisfactory, minimal, unsatisfactory, mastered, not mastered. So what I don't understand is if you click not mastered, well, I guess you have the options of unsatisfactory, satisfactory, minimal. So that would mean that the kid hasn't mastered the goal. So why do you have the not mastered option on there? Because they've either mastered it or you have to check unsatisfactory, satisfactory, minimal. Like, of course, if it's satisfactory, minimal, or unsatisfactory, you're also going to click not mastered. You know what I mean?
Right, right. So
I don't know why not mastered is an option.
I'm meeting July 9th with some inner people from OSIS, and I will bring that to them. about the not mastered. I know we're adding not yet implemented based on some feedback, but I'll jot down your feedback and then I'll get with them on that. And if anybody has any feedback about that drop down, you know, send it my way, and I don't make those unilateral decisions. I take it to another group, and then we work through that as to what I can change and what I can't when it comes to some of those drop downs. But you know, I appreciate the feedback, and I'll take that to them.
One more thing. I was also wondering, can you kind of put them in order, like either unsatisfactory, minimal, satisfactory, mastered? Like, I don't know why the order is in there the way it is. It's not
Is it
alphabetical.
I was gonna say, is it not alphabetical? Oh, the drop downs are supposed to be alphabetical.
Well, according to this, it doesn't look like it's alphabetical, but
Okay. Yeah, I just might not have caught that one. So yeah, we'll look at it. I don't know how it's in there. You know what might have happened too, if something got added, then sometimes when they put it in, they just stick it in, and so at the end maybe. So that could have why they'd be out of order, but I'll look at that.
thank you.
And then Anna, I was gonna get you those dates. And then Lindy has a question. Is it for when you might do a supplementary progress report and an annual, or when you're using it? Yeah, they're not mastered. Yeah, I'll have to look at the piece, but that's good feedback too. And then how do we get the old goals back for ESRI reporting? I don't know if
Say more.
Hmm?
I think we need more info, Caitlin. What do you mean?
Oh.
Is that because
like,
the
what'd you say?
IEP is no longer active, or is it because they were deleted? Like, what? I guess why are the old goals gone? There might not be a way to get them back if they've been deleted. Oh, a new IEP happened.
That was, you're gonna have to add them in again, but make a slight change, like adding a comma or a space, so it's not the exact same goal. I think Nick said is one character will make the difference,
Yeah, I
and
think
then you
this is a
can mark it as an
future-dated-
ESY.
I think this is a future dated issue, right? Because Caitlin, if I'm remembering right, you are future dating IEPs, right? So you're doing ESY based off the old IEP, but the new IEP is in the system.
Ah,
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's more complicated.
never mind.
But I think either way, the answer is you. If they're not there in the system, you can add them. But we may need a student example, Caitlin. If you want to shoot us a Zendesk ticket, that would probably be the best. With maybe an example we could look at.
All right, and looking at, I don't know what this question was, so we'll have to look at that. Okay, so we'll look at Elizabeth's question, and I know I'm going to put out some Q&A from this meeting, and so we'll look at that. I think it's talking about the meeting date. We've had some conversation about changing that date to the meeting date. So I think that's what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, and I think you were going to talk with the OSIS people on 7-9 about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big meeting on 7-9. Big meeting. So if you have any feedback,
Yeah,
if
7-9.
you want something changed, get it to me before 7-9. All right, thanks everyone. I hope you're enjoying your summers. You're taking some time for yourselves and your families. It was great having you on, and we will see you next month. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.